This is SWTN.
From the time people could first look up at the sky and convey their feelings as to what lies beyond that black curtain of night, our ancestors became students of the stars. They watched and recorded the movements of the planets, the disappearance and reappearance of the stars, the sudden blips of meteors, the mysterious presence of comets, and the ominous occurrence of eclipses. They would honor these events, record them, build monuments to them, plant their crops by them, generate priestly societies around them. Every culture has its star myths and legends, and sometimes they would see things they couldn't explain, and this became the work of gods, or demons. Recent research going back on some of these ancient encounters have left contemporaries wondering if humans haven't had previous contact with other intelligent species from other worlds. Could these be instead communications with spiritual forces, or could they be mystical revelations by divinely inspired individuals? Significant perhaps, but not material manifestations. If the subconscious is the deep link to not only the inner self, but to the more subtle connections of the universe, it is merely a blank page, a vacant chalkboard on which something needs to be written in order to conjure up its natural creative forces. That chalk, that ink pen that does the writing, is the conscious self, the part that decides what it wants done, and what it must do in order to work. This unity, this give and take between subconscious and consciousness, between high priestess and magician, is what yields fruitfulness. But neither is in operation until an actual physical force is exerted. Magic, the drive of the will, is accomplished through a physical act of performance. This is often embodied in ritual. To accomplish anything, the soul must imagine a solution, usually the outgrowth of some need, and put it into practice by some physical method. Magic often accomplishes this by the use of some art form, often called a spell. And even that may not be enough without some physical follow-up. It is not, for example, enough to merely think yourself thin, even with the psychic addition of prayer. You must also be willing to act on those impulses by following a physical routine of proper diet and exercise, that is, the physical component of the emotional and spiritual program chosen. The universe works from the standpoint of the etheric, the idea through the desire, the emotion to the physical form. This was how you were born and how all magic manifests. The aura is the field of energy around and throughout the body, often depicted in a halo around the head or a nimbus around a religious figure. Everyone, and every living thing, for that matter, has one. It's the energy of which you are made, but not necessarily that which makes you. It gets denser the closer it is to physical matter. A strong person has a strong aura, a sick person a weak one. It is this you want to maintain when practicing any energy work. People are affected and affect others all the time throughout their lives, unconsciously. It is just those who decide to make a practice of such matters are the ones who are conscious of its presence and flow. It is this you want to strengthen for protection before you begin any psychic practice. This is psychic self-defense, the practice of which helps in health and therefore aids in resisting disease. Daily stress can reduce or wear it. Poor, unhealthy, or unpleasant environments can strain it. A good strong aura, like the body, is maintained by healthy living practices of diet, exercise, and peaceful, giving surroundings. In addition, there are aura strengthening exercises that can and should be practiced on their own, and especially before any energy work. A strong aura can rebuff a lot of earthly problems as well. To practice psychic self-defense, one must develop a strong sense of visualization. The first thing to concentrate on is the breath. It is the thing that connects you to higher planes and is that which your body craves most. A slow, steady, even breath over a certain extended time is required. Give yourself at least a few minutes of this before starting anything. Once you have settled into this mode, begin visualizing a bright white light coming into you through the breath and flowing in and around and through you, replenishing you. Let it go with each exhale to be replaced again with the next in-breath. Don't worry if you cannot actually see or feel anything at this stage, or that you are just imagining it all, meaning it's not real or doesn't count. Leave all such judgments behind. Just concentrate on the image of the white light permeating you. When you are ready, picture a circle of blue light surrounding the space you occupy, all the while letting the white light still come and go with each breath. Allow yourself to hold that for a minute, then let all such images fade, and relax. This exercise will not only prepare you for later, more difficult tasks, but it is a good warm-up for anything and has the added benefit of helping protect you and strengthening your aura.
I call the heart chakra the grand central station of the chakra system, as it is the center of the 7 major chakras. There are 3 physical chakras below the heart and 3 spiritual chakras above it. Fittingly, there are probably more stones for the heart than any other chakra, as 2 colors are represented here, pink and green. This is the emotional center of our energy system, the place where compassion and unconditional love reside. The most well-known stone for the heart is rose quartz. I call this the grandmother stone, as it will soothe and comfort and bring up emotions that are ready to be released. It metaphorically holds you and rocks you and tells you that everything is going to be okay, that you are lovable and good and need only realize how wonderful you are. Rose quartz also is used to bring love into your life by helping you to love yourself. My favorite heart chakra stone is kunzite. Kunzite is a hard striated stone that works on a deeper level than rose quartz. I call this the love stone for the new age, as it assists you in loving yourself. Kunzite will take you into the hidden places inside your heart where you conceal yourself from yourself in order to bring forward your goodness and magnificence. Kunzite has natural lithium in it, giving it a serene quality, and while it is more demanding than rose quartz, it will never show you more than you're ready to experience. Chrysoprase is a lovely lime green stone, which is very calming and it helps slow the pace of the heart. It's good for people who have a lot of stress in their lives, who live at a fast pace, and who would like to slow down a bit. Rhodochrosite is a pink stone with white bands going through it, connecting your heart with the crown chakra and spirit. This stone assists in bringing your spiritual nature into the heart so that you can realize a more sacred feeling. On the flip side of that, we have rhodonite, which is laced with black stripes and connects to the root chakra to help the heart stay grounded and centered. It helps to steady the heart and keep you from being too scattered. Using rhodochrosite and rhodonite in conjunction with each other provides a lovely balance in the heart area. The last stone I want to talk about is aventurine, which is a form of quartz and is very hard and direct. The thing I like about aventurine is that it will go to whatever spot in the body needs to be unblocked. I call this adventure green, as it takes an adventurous tour of your energy system and goes directly to the place that needs its help. This really takes the guesswork out of doing crystal healing work. Whatever stone you choose for the heart, please know that you are directing your healing to the center of all healing, the place where we learn to love and appreciate ourselves and others, the place where we love one another as ourselves, so that true healing can occur for all.
The ancient Celtic holiday of Beltane was celebrated on May 1st and corresponds to November 1st on the wheel. This fertility festival honors the flowering of nature and the beginning of summer. This fertility festival had the phallic maypole as its symbol, usually with a ring on top that represented union with the female. The maypole was driven into the ground to stimulate the growth of the crops in the summer season. In many parts of Europe, this holiday is still celebrated with the May Queen, who represents the fresh youthfulness of nature in her season of full blooming. The men go into the forest to cut down the maypole and bring it back to the village. Women wishing for fertility then sit on the upper ring of the pole, and the intertwining of the ribbons mimics sexual union. Beltane's earliest origins may have been related to the Celtic god Cernunnos, the horn god who was associated with the oak tree, symbol of the waxing year. It is believed that the 180-foot-tall Cern giant, which is carved into a hillside in Dorsetshire, England, was a representation of the god force with its erect penis and brandishing a club. For centuries, May Day rites were performed inside the giant, perhaps inside the godhead itself, and the maypole may have replaced the earlier tradition of these fertility rites. Another event that accompanies the dance around the maypole is the Godiva, or goddess procession, which is still reenacted in England today. The Godiva was a representative of the spring maiden and the flowering of life. In olden times, she rode her horse naked without shame before she was covered with long flaxen hair and a pink bodysuit. In the early 70s, some brave women decided to ride naked again in the Godiva procession, but they still needed the protection of long wigs. The girl chosen to be the Godiva was usually a teenager who was chosen for her good behavior, and to be allowed to ride nude was considered an honor among the other girls. Her companions scattered flowers over the bystanders, and in some places she was preceded by an old woman on a black horse. She was the spring maiden who drove away the darkness of winter and her freshness of young womanhood. Another interesting coincidence is the fact that Godiva rides into a town on a white mare. The white mare is the totem animal of the Celtic goddess Epona. Her many bas-reliefs included an image of the goddess lying half naked on the back of her horse. She was known as the Great Mother, and her role as a fertility goddess was represented by the sheaf of corn in her lap and the cornucopia or goblet in her hand. Many believe that the white horse of Uffington in England, which is also cut into the vast countryside and seen from the air like the Cern giant, is also a worshipping place of the goddess Epona. Hence, there may be a connection between the white mare of the fertility goddess Epona and the white mare of the springtime maiden. Another figure that still takes part in the modern-day maypole festivals is a man called Jack in the Green, who rides a horse and is covered from head to foot in plants and flowers. He is obviously a representation of the flowering of life, and is later transformed into John Barleycorn. The maypole dance and Godiva processions may also have links with the hobby horse dances the mummers performed, where the spring maiden is presented to the sacred penis. In all these rituals, sex magic is performed in order to bring fruitfulness and fertility to all of nature. Through these celebrations, ancient people put themselves in tune with the rhythms of life through the sacred dance of union. So dance around that maypole, ladies, for Godiva rides again.
People have many reasons for coming to see an astrologer. Some of them want a yearly forecast of what to expect, what the planets have in store for them. Some people have a specific area that they want to have looked into. But the biggest reasons why a person comes to visit an astrologer are love and money, with love topping the bill. One of the questions I get very frequently is the person that I'm seeing right now compatible with me, or what's going to happen with the relationship? And there are many factors that determine compatibility. One of the general rules, which you'll see many places, is that people are compatible by element. And by that I mean that fire sign people, i.e. Sagittarius, Aries, and Leos, are the most compatible with other fire signs. Or that water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, are compatible with other water signs. That's not the only thing that we look into. One of the most compatible aspects you can find between two people is when one person's sun is the same as another person's moon. For instance, if the woman has her moon in Aries and the gentleman has his sun in Aries, this is a mark of compatibility. The other things that we look for as far as compatibility go are aspects from Venus to Mars, which indicates sexual compatibility or sometimes incompatibility. We look at where the ascendants are. If the Sun, Moon, or Venus of one person is on the ascendant of the other person, this is viewed as a mark of compatibility as well. You look for a Saturn aspect. This can tell you if the relationship is going to be long-lasting or not. I would also look for a Uranus aspect between the chart of one person or another person. A lot of times when there's a Uranus aspect that goes on in a compatibility analysis, the relationship is very exciting and it has a lot of pizzazz, it has a lot of zest, but it may burn itself out very quickly. When a person comes to visit me to see if the person they're seeing is compatible with them, the first thing that I would do would be to draw up a chart, not only of the client, but of the person that they're interested in. So if they have not only a birth date, but a birth time, this is most helpful. In this instance, this is the female's chart, and this is the male's chart. Now, the reason why I would draw up a chart for both parties is that you want to see what the other person is like, what their nature is. For instance, in this chart, and this is a male's chart, we can see that his Venus and his Neptune are close together, which can make this person very romantic, but perhaps not as realistic as they should be about matters of love. Person that would have, for instance, a Venus-Saturn conjunction, they may be shy, they could be a slow starter, they could be kind of cold, but in the long run they could end up being very loyal. The other thing I would look for in a person's chart is elements of honesty. You want to know if the person you're involved with is going to be honest, to see whether the person is controlling. Very often that ends up being the case. For instance, a strong Pluto aspect in a person's chart, you have a person who's very charming, but they can have control issues that come up. So we want to see what the person they're involved with is like first, and then we move on to compatibility. This is what's called a synastry chart. And the women's planets are across and the men's are down. And a synastry chart tells us the nature of the relationship. We want to look for some conjunctions, some trines. The trines, for instance, in this chart, the moon, her moon and his moon are conjunct, which means they're at the same place. So they're going to have some of the same values about home, food, family, things of that nature. We have some trines in this compatibility chart, which indicate ease. We also have some squares. Some people think that squares in a compatibility chart are not that good, but it's my feeling that without some squares, the relationship will be too easy and there won't be anything to keep the person together. So by doing an analysis of this nature, we can see whether there's true compatibility between a person or whether it's a fling or an infatuation, so to speak. A Davidson chart is something that people started using, I'd want to say, relatively recently, within the last 20, 30 years or so. Then what a Davidson chart does is it takes the chart of two people and puts them together into one chart, which is a chart of the relationship. For instance, the female and the male chart, which I showed previously, have now been put together in one chart. A Davidson chart will show the nature of the relationship, can show times where there's stress in a relationship or when a relationship will end, and can be very useful as far as determining length of relationship and different things that could be involved with it. What's interesting is that you can do a compatibility analysis not only in matters of love, but for business partnerships, between friendships. I've done it for people that were in bands together. So compatibility can be used just outside of the normal matters of the heart, so to speak. Astrology can be a useful tool to tell you who you may be compatible with, and it can be a useful tool to tell you who you might want to stay away from, or who you may have to work a little bit harder at a relationship with. So I would want to say I've known people that you have used the stars and they have found true love, since a good astrology chart can indicate when you're more apt to come across it or when it's more apt to find you. So pay attention to your stars. Remember that old pickup line, "Hey baby, what's your sign?" And keep it in mind when you're looking for love.
The northern sky in the northern hemisphere contains a circle of stars directly above us that revolves throughout the night, but never rises and never sets. The southern sky in the southern hemisphere has a corresponding stellar circle over its realm. The reason, of course, is that these stars are in a direction far enough from the equator to never dip beyond the horizon. Consequently, they can never be seen in the southernmost hemisphere, and vice versa for those constellations atop the South Pole, because they never peek out above the horizon in those latitudes. While the South Pole has its Magellanic Clouds and Southern Cross, the North has its familiar standbys in its Big and Little Dippers, Cassiopeia, and in summer its great summer triangle of Deneb, Altair, and Vega, each the base star of 3 separate constellations. Deneb is actually part of a northern cross of its own, being in the constellation of Cygnus the Swan. Such stars are called circumpolar stars, as they always seem to revolve around one of Earth's magnetic poles. While these are among the easiest to find and most famous of constellations, they become even more evident as spring heads to summer, if for no other reason than there are more clear nights and more fair weather to be outdoors. The Little Dipper has the added distinction of terminating in Polaris, what is considered the pole star, for now. This is the single star sailors guided their ships by for centuries, as the one permanent fixture in the sky, being aligned with magnetic north. Actually, this is just a coincidence, as the Earth spins with a slow wobble that takes 25,000 years to complete. 12,000 years from now, we will have a completely different pole star. But by the time 25,000 years have passed, Polaris will once again correspond with true north. 5 is freedom and variety. 5 is positive change. 5 is magnetic. 5 is frequently the number of temporary things. 5 can be very visual. 5 can imply sexual attraction. 5 can mean travel. 5 is one of the most positive of numbers. 5 is good for making contacts and interviews. Its negative aspects are doing things in excess or being overwhelmed by the problematic. It can leave one hard to focus and decisions difficult to make. It is often the mediator between the lower and higher numbers. As 5 is the mediating number, so the Hierophant is often the mediator between the higher and lower forces. His function is one of listening. He therefore works through causality rather than by direct command. He is the male manifestation of Venusian power, authority by thought or feeling, the spiritual father of things, the force of intuition. He brings up treasures of wisdom from the deep subconscious and brings down treasures from the superconscious that floats above the level of personal awareness.